So today in this video, I'm gonna be talking about how to use toms to accentuate your bass lines. Essentially using the toms to add a sort of percussive, grooving, transient element to an otherwise possibly not so percussive bass line. And I'll show you what I mean right now. Let's go into the Ableton and cook some stuff up. Alright, so I lied about cooking something up. I actually already have this made. This is from an old project file. And yeah, let's take a listen. Skip a little ahead. Alright, so let me break down these elements. So I'll solo all these low frequency elements, starting with the kick. Pretty typical 909 kick. And so the bass line, I'll solo that. You can see what I'm talking about, how it's not very percussive. So you got these two parts. It's coming from my moog minitaur. So we're gonna take that, and now we want to add some groove to it. So I have this 808 stab, and I'm using this sort of like as an auxiliary kick slash tom. And this is kind of how I used to do it, was take an 808 and filter it down. But nowadays what I tend to do is actually just use the kick that, like the main kick, just take that, duplicate it, and filter that down. So it's a little bit more cohesive between the kick you're using and these like aux kicks, because it's like the same thing. But an 808 works fine because of how like punchy it is, and it's like doesn't have much harmonic content. So just that itself adds some more movement to your bass line, adds that transient stuff that I was talking about. And you want this to complement the bass line that you have, not work against it. So that's pretty important part about creating the grooves. Have things complement each other. So this is a pretty simple kind of rolling, this is like 808 stab. And then we have another layer of toms here, just a 909 tom. I love the 909 low tom, sounds great. I think this is also before I got my TR8, so I was just using the Ableton samples, they sound great. So here's this. This is adding a lot of the groove because it does have a lot of this sort of upper, like low mid sort of content that's blending in with the existing bass line. And without it, it's a lot more, it's flat, stagnant, there's not as much, the bass isn't as interesting. And I like to go pretty hard and just have a lot of layers, especially with toms. So we have another one. These are some 808 high toms. And this is less, so these 808 high toms are not meant to blend so much with the original bass line because they are in sort of like a higher pitch, but they still add that rolling groove. They all add to the movement in the bass line. And so, you know, you want to EQ this in a way that they all fit together. So if we come back to this, let me take out these things. So both these bass lines are pretty subby. There's not much overtones going on. Most of it's happening down here below 100 hertz. This 808 stab is also pretty subby. So what I'm doing here is I have this low cut at 45 hertz because I don't want too much of like the sub frequencies, right? Because the bass line already has a lot of subs. Even though I'm high passing it at 30, there's still a lot of stuff happening around 40 hertz. So that's why I'm taking out these lows, and you know, you can even have another high pass going. Because if you have too much low lows playing at the same time, it's gonna distort and also be harder to mix, and you're not going to get that clarity and punchiness from all the different elements. So that's also why I have the bass line in both of these cases sidechain to not only the kick, but also sidechain to the 808 like aux kick, the 808 stab. I don't have them sidechain to these toms only because I'm taking out all the sub frequencies from here, and I can even probably kind of ease up on that. What you want to do is play around with the EQ and find a crossover that works well to blend all these elements together. So that's what I'm doing here. If you see, if you bring it too much, then it sticks out as this sort of like very separate element and not together with the entire bass line. So you ease that up a little bit. Just find sort of sweet spot. Same with all this, you know, there's a lot of this mids here, low mids, which tend to be sort of a muddy frequency, so I'm cutting that out. Maybe even I'll increase that Q factor a little bit. And then with these high toms, again, the high toms are pretty high pitch, so I have this crossed over at a higher frequency. So something to keep in mind when you're making, I mean, kind of anything in general in your track, but especially when you're layering a lot of different bass lines together, is making sure that each element kind of occupies its own frequency range and has its playing a specific role. So the bass line and this 808 stab, they are taking up the same frequency range, right? The sort of subsonic, not subsonic, but you know, it's like in the low subby range. However, they're playing different roles, right? The bass line is playing the sort of, it's like a smooth bass, right? Not much, like I said, we call it transients, you don't have to punch. Whereas the 808 stab, though, again, in the same frequency range, is playing the role of giving the punch. So when you combine the 808 stab and the bass line, it kind of acts as one bass line that sort of has the punchy element as well as the smooth element to it. And the toms they're punchy, but because they're punchy, I don't want them in the same frequency range, right? They're playing the role of being punchy and groovy, but since we already have something here for the sub range, this is providing that for the sort of low mid frequency range. And then you have the high toms, which again is also playing the role of being a transient element in your bass line, but now we're taking that a step further and having it at a higher pitch, higher than the 909 toms. So the 808 toms are occupying the sort of 200 hertz range, almost like what, like 220. These toms occupying a lot of this 80 to 120-ish kind of range, and even something a little bit out here in like the 1K kind of falls off. And then both the bass line from the moog and the 808 stab are taking care of the lower frequency range and playing sort of the smooth element and the punch element. So yeah, I'm just trying to, like, I don't know, just give kind of like a way to think about approaching a bass line in terms of functional roles of each element of the track. So that way, you know, you don't have things competing over one another, and they're all complementing each other and working together in unison to achieve world peace, aka a better track. So yeah, anyways, hope you got some goddamn phone. Hope you got some useful information from here. I know I didn't really like go over too many things, but I really wanted to talk about sort of like the philosophy that goes behind what I do with my toms and bass lines. So anyways, thank you for watching. Be sure to leave a little like, subscribe, do all that shit. And yeah, catch you in the next video. Peace out.